It's 2009. You have an idea for an online business. The code is the easy part. You can build the website in a weekend. Then you try to do the one thing every business has to do, take a payment. And you hit a wall. To accept a credit card online, you need a merchant account. To get a merchant account, you need a bank to approve you. The bank wants paperwork, references, a trading history you don't have yet. Weeks pass, sometimes months. Half the people who start the process never finish it. This was the hidden tax on the entire internet. Not a law, not a fee, just friction. Thick, bureaucratic, invisible friction that killed ideas before they could ever breathe. Then two brothers from a village in the west of Ireland looked at that wall and saw something nobody else did, a bug, and they decided to fix it with 7 lines of code. To understand what they built, you have to understand what they were up against. In 2009, getting paid online wasn't one thing. It was a chain of middlemen, each one taking a cut and adding a delay. First came the merchant account, a special bank account just for card revenue, approved by an underwriter who treated every new business like a potential fraudster. Then the payment gateway, a separate company that connected your website to the card networks. Then the processor sitting behind that. Then Visa and MasterCard themselves, at the top of it all. Each link had its own contract, its own fees, its own integration, written in documentation that read like tax law. A developer could burn 2 weeks just wiring it together. And that was only if the bank said yes. Most of the time, the bank said no, or said maybe, or said come back when you have revenue. Which was impossible because you needed the payment system to make revenue in the first place. It was a perfect trap. PayPal had softened the edges, but it brought its own problems. Frozen accounts, clunky redirects, a checkout that threw your customer onto another website and prayed they came back. For a serious business, it wasn't infrastructure. It was a workaround. The internet was exploding. The way it got paid was stuck in the previous century. So who were the two people who fixed it? Not bankers, not Wall Street insiders. 2 teenagers from rural Ireland. Patrick and John Collison grew up near Limerick, in the green and quiet west of the country, the sons of a microbiologist and an electrical engineer. There was no fintech scene around them. There was no startup scene at all. There was a slow dial-up connection and a lot of time to read and tinker. Patrick taught himself to program young. In 2005, at 16, he won Ireland's Young Scientist of the Year for inventing his own dialect of a programming language. His younger brother John was, by some accounts, even more relentless. Both of them finished school years ahead of schedule. Then, while still teenagers, they built their first company together, a tool for managing eBay listings called Octomatic. They talked their way into Y Combinator, the famous Silicon Valley startup school. And in 2008, they sold that company. Patrick was 19 years old, and suddenly, a millionaire. Most people would have stopped right there. The brothers were only getting started, because while building that first company, they had run straight into the same wall as everyone else. Taking money online was absurdly, needlessly hard. And the more they stared at it, the more convinced they became that the whole world had simply accepted a broken system as normal. If you're enjoying this, take a second to subscribe. We tell the real stories behind the world's biggest builds, and there are a lot more on the way. They never set out to start a payments company. They just wanted the problem to disappear. So they began building the thing they wished already existed. What they built started as a side project with a deliberately boring name, /dev/payments. The idea was almost insultingly simple. What if accepting a payment online took a few minutes instead of a few weeks? What if a developer could copy a small block of code, paste it into their site, and just start getting paid? No bank meetings, no underwriter, no gateway contract argued over for a month. You signed up, you dropped in the code, and the system handled everything hidden behind it. The merchant account, the gateway, the processor, the compliance, the fraud checks. All of that misery, absorbed and tucked out of sight behind one clean interface. The pitch became legendary in Silicon Valley. 7 lines of code. That was all it took to accept money on the internet. Where everyone else saw a thicket of contracts and regulation, the Collisons saw an interface problem, a mess that could be wrapped, simplified, and handed to developers as something almost elegant. It sounds obvious now. In 2010, it was heresy. The entire payments industry was built on the assumption that the friction was necessary, that all those gatekeepers existed for good reason. 2 brothers barely out of their teens were betting their lives that most of it was just inertia. To build it, they needed 2 things they didn't have: money and credibility in an industry that ran entirely on trust. They found both in an unlikely place. The brothers brought the idea back to Y Combinator and word spread fast. The early backers read like a roster of Silicon Valley royalty. Paul Graham, who founded Y Combinator itself, Peter Thiel and Elon Musk, the men who had built the original PayPal, then Sequoia Capital and Andreessen Horowitz, two of the most powerful venture firms on Earth. Think about what that actually meant. The people who had created the last great payments company were now betting against their own creation, on two unknowns barely out of their teens. Why? Because the demo spoke for itself. Investors who had spent years fighting payment systems would watch the brothers accept a live charge in under a minute, and the reaction was always the same. Disbelief, then a kind of relief. It just worked. In September 2011, after more than a year of quiet building, the company opened to the public. There was no flashy launch event, no advertising blitz, just a quiet release, aimed at the only audience that ever mattered to them: developers. In the earliest days, the company had a growth tactic that became famous in startup circles. People called it the Collison Installation. When the brothers met another founder who said the idea sounded interesting, they didn't just email a sign-up link and hope. One of them would say, "Give me your laptop, take it on the spot," and install their payment code into that person's product right there, before the conversation was even over. By the time they handed the laptop back, the other founder could already accept money. It captured everything about how they worked. No friction, even in the sales pitch. The product was so simple it could be set up in the length of a hallway chat. And once it was in, nobody ever wanted to go back to the old way. This is how the company grew before it had a marketing budget, before it had a brand anyone recognized. One founder at a time, one laptop at a time, inside a tight network of startups who all talked constantly to each other. The early customers turned into evangelists, because the brothers had personally reached over and made their lives easier. Here's the thing the established players never understood. The company wasn't really selling payments, it was selling time. Every other firm in the industry sold to executives, the chief financial officer, the head of finance, the person who signed the contracts. The brothers sold to the engineer instead, the person who actually had to make the thing work at 2 in the morning. They were obsessive about that experience. The documentation was clear, almost beautiful. The code examples ran on the first try. When something broke, a real engineer answered, and often that engineer was one of the founders. Patrick Collison was known to personally email developers who hit a problem. This was a radical idea in finance. Treat the developer as the customer. Make the hard thing easy, and make the easy thing invisible. And it spread the way good tools always spread, not through advertising, but through word of mouth between engineers who couldn't believe how much pain had just vanished. A startup founder would mention it to another. A developer would quietly slip it into a project inside a big corporation. By the time the finance department even noticed, it was already running the payments. It grew from the bottom up, one engineer at a time, until it was everywhere. But a clean sign-up is not a business. The hard part was never the 7 lines of code the customer saw. It was the staggering machine underneath that nobody ever saw. Behind that simple interface, the company had to become a bank without actually being a bank. It had to connect to card networks in dozens of countries, each one with its own rules. It had to detect fraud in milliseconds, move money across borders, juggle currencies, taxes, refunds, disputes, and the regulations of every single market it entered. Every one of those was its own brutal, multi-year engineering problem. And instead of hiding all that complexity, they turned it into products. Stripe Connect let entire marketplaces pay out thousands of sellers at once. The quiet engine behind companies like Lyft and Shopify. Stripe Atlas let a founder anywhere on Earth incorporate a United States company in minutes, from a laptop. A tool called Radar used machine learning across the whole network to catch fraud before it landed. Billing, invoicing, financing, even physical card readers. Each one another layer of the financial stack, absorbed and made simple. Slowly, the description of the company itself changed. It stopped being merely a way to accept a credit card. It became infrastructure, the financial plumbing that other companies built their entire businesses on top of. And the bigger that plumbing grew, the harder it became for anyone to ever rip it out. There was one more thing the giants underestimated. For infrastructure, the most important feature isn't flash. It's that it never goes down. When you are the system that thousands of businesses rely on to get paid, every second of downtime is money that simply evaporates for your customers. So the company became obsessive about reliability in a way most software firms never have to be. The goal was the kind of uptime measured in tiny fractions of a percent, systems engineered to keep moving money even when individual parts quietly failed. At the same time, it went global. Payments are not universal. Every country has its own banks, its own card schemes, its own regulators, its own preferred way to pay. Conquering each new market meant months of legal and engineering grind for a single new flag on the map. The company did it anyway, country by country, until a developer in dozens of nations could reach for the same few lines of code and plug straight into the world. Reliability and reach, boring words, but they are exactly what turns a clever little tool into infrastructure that an entire economy can be built on. By 2018, the list of companies running on this infrastructure had become almost absurd. Amazon, Google, Microsoft, then Salesforce, Uber, and Zoom. The same internet giants that could easily have built their own payment systems chose instead to run on the rails that two Irish brothers had started in an apartment. The company was now processing hundreds of billions of dollars a year. Its valuation climbed right along with it. 9 billion, then 20, then 35. Each new round made the Collison brothers, still in their 20s, among the wealthiest self-made people on the planet. But they seemed strangely uninterested in the usual trappings of that wealth. No super yachts, no public feuds. Instead, they read voraciously, funded scientific research, and talked constantly about a single strange idea, that their real job was to grow what they called the GDP of the internet. Not to carve out a bigger slice of the existing economy, but to make the whole online economy itself larger, by stripping away the friction that had always held it back. None of this was happening in a vacuum. The company was surrounded by giants who wanted exactly the same prize. PayPal still dominated consumer checkout. Square had captured small physical retailers with its little white card reader. A quiet Dutch rival named Adyen was winning the largest enterprises through brutal efficiency. And the card networks themselves sat above everyone, taking a cut of every single transaction that moved. For a company whose entire promise was that payments should feel simple, the competition was anything but. Margins in this business are thin. Trust takes years to build and seconds to lose. One major security breach, one wave of fraud, one regulator deciding the rules had suddenly changed. Any of it could be fatal. And the brothers had made an expensive choice. They kept the company private far longer than their rivals, refusing to go public, raising money from investors instead of the stock market. That kept them firmly in control. But it also meant that when the climate turned, there was no public market to cushion the fall. And in 2022, the climate turned hard. In March of 2021, at the very height of the pandemic boom, the company raised money at a staggering valuation. $95 billion. It was the most valuable private startup in the United States, worth more than Ford, more than most banks. Built in just over a decade. Then the world turned. Interest rates rose sharply. The easy money of the boom dried up almost overnight. Across the entire technology industry, the sky-high valuations of that era suddenly looked like a fever dream. The company was not immune. In early 2023, it cut its own internal valuation, from $95 billion all the way down to around $50 billion. Nearly half of its paper value simply gone. It laid off around 14% of its staff, more than 1,000 people. Patrick Collison sent out a memo taking the blame, admitting they had hired too fast and been far too optimistic that the boom would last. For the first time, the relentless rise had clearly reversed. The same press that had crowned them now asked the obvious question. Had the company finally peaked? Was the magic gone? The answer wouldn't come from the headlines. It would come from the numbers. Here's what the headlines missed. While its valuation swung wildly up and down, the actual underlying business never stopped growing. In 2023, the company processed more than $1 trillion in payments, a figure equal to a meaningful slice of the entire global economy, all of it moving through systems the brothers had built. The following year, that number climbed past $1.4 trillion. They raised fresh money to let employees finally cash out, and the valuation recovered, past $60 billion, then back over $90 billion again by 2025. The down round, it turned out, had not been the end of the story at all. It had been a correction in a number on paper, while the real machine kept quietly compounding underneath. The company was now woven so deeply into the internet that switching it off would break thousands of businesses at once. Think about the scale of what those 7 lines of code became. A meaningful fraction of all commerce on the internet now flows through software. Two brothers started writing in their 20s. They didn't just build a company, they built a layer of the modern economy, and then made it disappear so completely that most of the people relying on it every day have no idea it's even there. There's a deeper idea hiding inside this whole story, and the brothers say it out loud. Most companies try to win by capturing value, by grabbing a bigger slice of a fixed pie. The Collisons became convinced that the far bigger opportunity was to grow the pie itself. If starting an online business is hard, then fewer businesses exist. Make it trivially easy and thousands more of them bloom. And a tiny cut of a vastly larger economy is worth far more than a large cut of a small one. That belief turned a payments tool into something closer to a mission. Stripe Atlas exists so that a programmer in Lagos or Manila can launch a global company from a bedroom. The obsessive simplicity exists so that the next great idea doesn't quietly die at the payment wall, the way so many ideas died in the years before they came along. Whether or not you buy the idealism, the math plainly worked. By removing friction, they captured a position no amount of advertising could ever have bought. They became the default. And on the internet, the default is everything. A slow dial-up connection in the west of Ireland. Two brothers who taught themselves to code because there was little else to do. A side project with a deliberately boring name, built simply to scratch their own itch. Today, a meaningful share of everything bought and sold online passes through the thing they made. Not because they begged the banks for permission, and not because they outspent the giants who came before them. They simply looked at a wall that everyone else had accepted as permanent, and realized it had only ever been made of paperwork. Patrick and John Collison didn't disrupt the payments industry. They quietly replaced its foundation, 7 lines of code at a time, and built one of the most important companies on the internet from a bedroom, from nothing. If this changed the way you see the invisible machinery behind your everyday life, subscribe. There are a lot more builds like this one still left to uncover.